happy to see everyone here today. It's absolutely gorgeous weekend we're going to have to come and take it. We always love to have something, especially this year. We're not full of ants, although we're missing the rain that we had last year. That's a sad compromise there. Anyway, thank y'all all for coming. We appreciate the DRT and all they do, and we try to support y'all a little bit every now and again. We thank y'all for coming today, and all the other visitors that are here today. Good to see you, Mayor. And keep him in line. Thank you, everyone. And if we will now, we'll go ahead and honor the Texas flag and our American flag. Pledge
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, we have a speaker that I know none of y'all know, that none of y'all have ever seen before. She had the misfortune of attending an SRT meeting, and we were just wondering who could we get for a speaker, and somebody volunteers, and we thought, my gosh, Marge, do you really and truly mean that? I mean, are we not going to do a search here? And she said, well, no, I really will. And so we said, thank you very much, and we never searched any further. So without any further ado, we will present to you Marge Kassir, someone who y'all know.
He didn't tell it exactly right, because what happened is I was late to that meeting, and when I got there they said, oh, we volunteered you. They did say, will you do it after that, and I said, oh, okay, I can do that. So, after the American Revolution, settlers began pushing farther and farther inland from the original 13 colonies. Just 20 years later, Thomas Jefferson purchased Louisiana from France. There was disagreement over the exact boundary between the U.S. and Spain, but the Sabine River was finally established as the boundary in 1819. Only a few years after that, Mexico won its independence from Spain. The government that was set up was a federation of states. The Constitution of 1824 guaranteed the states certain rights and powers. The national government, as well as the state of Coahuila y Tejas, looked favorably upon settlement of what is now Texas and granted contracts for colonization. It was under this government that Anglos from the southern states poured across the Sabine River into Mexican Texas. Impresario Green DeWitt's contract allowed him to settle families on land between the Guadalupe and Lavaca rivers. A settlement was established on Kerr Creek at the east end of St. Louis Street. The westernmost Anglo settlement in Texas, it was attacked by Native Americans. The colonists moved closer to settlements on the Lavaca River for a time. When they returned the next year, they established Gonzales closer to the river, where it now stands. DeWitt procured a small cannon from the political chief in San Antonio for their protection. Laws were passed in 1830 that alarmed the Texas settlers. One law forbade new colonists being settled in Texas, but in practice, the government in Coahuila continued to honor the land grants of the impresarios. Another law garrisoned Mexican soldiers in the colonies, and another one assessed customs duties, that's taxes, on the colonies. Conflicts between the Mexican troops and the Texan colonists resulted, often over the taxes. Conflicts at Anahuac and Velasco and Nacogdoches. As president, Santa Anna increasingly supported strong centralist government. He abolished the Constitution and he limited the powers of the states. Many of the Mexican states rebelled. Then in 1835, Santa Anna abolished the legislature in Coahuila in Texas. The colonists in Texas became more and more dissatisfied with the political situation. Domingo de Ugurteca was the military commander in San Antonio. He had fought in the Battle of Medina with Santa Anna. He had been in command at the fort of Velasco, where he was defeated by the Texians in 1832. He considered the Texians to be disrespectful of the Mexican government. His opinion influenced Santa Anna's attitude toward the Anglos and the Tejanos. There were many Tejanos who also opposed the changes in the government and the loss of their rights. In September of 1835, Ugurteca sent 5 soldiers to reclaim the cannon at Gonzales. It is unclear if Santa Anna had ordered him to do that or if he had done it on his own. There seems to have been a misunderstanding as to whether the cannon was a gift or a loan. There are Mexican documents indicating it was given with the stipulation that it would be returned upon request. The colonists in Gonzales felt that they had the right to keep the cannon. Refusing to give it up, they took the soldiers prisoner and buried the cannon. The Committee of Safety for Gonzales wrote letters and sent riders to other settlements to the east asking for help. After a short delay, Alcalde Andrew Ponton wrote a letter to Ugurteca explaining that the soldiers had been denied because he was not present when they arrived. He said that the danger from native attacks for which the cannon had been given was still present. He asked to be excused from handing over the cannon until he could consult with the political chief and obtain more information. The letter's tone was very polite, but Ponton was obviously stalling for time. One of the soldiers was sent back to San Antonio with Ponton's letter. Ugurteca responded by sending troops with orders to get the cannon. He instructed them to use force. He instructed them to use force if necessary, but to avoid open conflict if possible. He was aware of the tensions and clearly did not want to fan the flames of resistance. And so it was that Lieutenant Castaneda and 10 dragoons arrived on the west bank of the Guadalupe River across from Gonzales on September 29, 1835. There had been rain. The river was high and flowing swiftly. There was usually a ferry to take travelers across the river into the town, but the men of Gonzales had brought all the ferries to the Gonzales side of the river. There were only 18 men in Gonzales. 18 men, hopeful that their pleas for help would bring reinforcements. Reinforcements were arriving from LaGrange and Mina, that's Bastrop, and Brazoria and Columbus and Victoria and settlements on the Navidad and Lavaca rivers. Aware of their arrival, Castaneda moved his troops 7 miles up the river. He may have been looking for another place to cross. Soon there were 150 or more men in Gonzales. They were volunteers, and volunteers elected their own leaders. They elected John Henry Moore to take command. They dug up the cannon and mounted it on a wagon, fixing a flag over it declaring, "Come and take it." On the night of October 1st, the Texians crossed the river and approached the Mexican camp. In a heavy fog the next morning, shots were exchanged. One Texian was wounded when his horse threw him. One Mexican trooper was wounded. When the fog lifted, a few more shots were fired. Castaneda asked to speak to Moore, and the two met on horseback in the open field. Castaneda asked why he had been fired upon. Moore replied that Castaneda and his troops represented Santa Anna, and that Santa Anna was an enemy of the Texans, who were fighting to preserve the Constitution of 1824. Moore invited Castaneda to surrender and join the Texians. Castaneda said he was personally opposed to Santa Anna's policies. but as a soldier he was obliged to follow orders and take the cannon back to San Antonio. Moore pointed to the cannon and told him to come and take it, as he wheeled his horse around and gave the order for the Texians to fire. Another shot was fired, and the Mexican troops turned and headed back to San Antonio without the cannon. Does anybody really think the Battle of Gonzales was fought over a small bronze artillery piece? There is evidence that it may not even have been operational. It had been mounted on one of the blockhouses of the fort and was more a visual deterrent to attacks from hostile natives than it was a real threat to do them harm. When fired, it did make a loud noise. In one of the communications sent across the river to Castaneda before the reinforcements arrived, Joseph Clements, the regidor of the Ayuntamiento, basically a city councilman, said in closing, "We are weak and few in number. Nevertheless, we are contending for what we believe to be just principles."
Thank you, Marge. That is the story of the old 18 in there. Men that stood on their principle. They were aware that they could have been overrun. They buried the cannon just in case that their 18 lives would have perished, and not prevented the Mexican friends from retaking the cannon. Therefore, they buried it. And that was their thought at the time. That was their prevention of returning the cannon. These men, as we call their roll, remember what these men did for the Texas Revolution as pretty much started. William Arrington, Simeon Bateman, Valentine Bennett, Jacob Darst, Benjamin Fuqua, James Hines, Thomas Jackson, Albert Martin, Charles Mason, Thomas Miller, John Sewell, Winslow Turner Sr., Ezekiel Williams, Joseph Clements, George W. Davis, Almiron Dickinson, Almon Cottle, and Graves Busher. Thank you everyone for attending today as we love to commemorate the old 18 and what they did for our Texas freedom. Thank you all.